Long, long time ago, in the village of the Seneca Indians, there lived a small boy. He had been orphaned when he was only a few weeks old, and a friend of the family took him in. She named him a name that meant orphan boy. She raised him just like a real mother would. She took care of his every need and taught him every skill. When he was old enough, she got a bow and arrow for him and told him, "From tomorrow, you will go out and hunt as many birds as you can with this bow and arrow. If you become a good hunter, you'll be always provided for and you will never lack anything." The boy wanted to make his mother proud. On the first day, he caught a few birds and came home very happy with himself. And she also was happy with him. Next day, he caught even more birds. And so it went every day he caught more birds until on the 9th day, he caught so many birds that he had to carry them on his back. When he came home with this big prize, his mother was beside herself proud. She wanted to tell all the neighbors, so she divided his spoils and gave each neighbor 1 or 2 birds. She was very proud of her boy. On the 10th day, as he went out in the morning and caught his first few birds, the next arrow he pulled out from the quiver was not quite made well enough. It had fallen apart in the quiver. So he looked round for a place where he could retie it and make it a sound arrow like all his other ones. He saw a meadow. This was quite far away from his village. He hadn't gone that far before. And then there was this meadow with this huge stone in the center. Flat stone, perfect for sitting on. So he bounced up to the stone, jumped up on it, and sat down to fix his arrow. As he was fixing the arrow, suddenly there was this voice. "Would you like me to tell you some stories?" The boy jumped up, looked around. There was no one there. So he went back to fixing the arrow. And yet again, there was a voice. "Would you like me to tell you some stories?" The boy looked around. He looked beside the stone. He looked on the other side. He looked behind him. There was no one there. And then, for the 3rd time, he heard it. "Would you like me to tell you some stories?" This is when he realized that the voice was coming from the stone itself. The stone was speaking to him. Not knowing what to say, he thought, why not? So he says, "Yes, I would like to hear some stories." The stone said, "If you give me the spoils of your morning hunt, I will tell you some stories." The boy readily agreed because hunting came easily to him. And the stone started telling stories. It told about the beginning of the world. It told about the beginning of the Seneca tribe. It talked about the great powers of the universe. The boy sat as if mesmerized. And when the stone announced, "I am finished for today," it was getting quite late. The boy ran all the way back to his village, hunting whatever birds he could on the way. But that wasn't very many. And his mother was understandably concerned. How come this boy who had hunted so well in previous day, is suddenly coming home with such meager prize. The next day, the same thing happened. He barely brought home any birds. And the third day, the same thing happened again. The mother was getting concerned. She paid a neighbor's boy to follow him into the woods, and he did. In the morning, he witnessed the orphan boy hunt quite a few birds, and then he saw him sit down on the big stone in the middle of the meadow and lay his morning's hunt on top of the stone. And then the neighbor's boy heard a voice, even though there was no one at the meadow except for them. Yet there was this deep, rumbling voice talking to the orphan boy. The other boy creeped soundlessly closer and closer, fully expecting to see another person that he just somehow didn't notice. But there was no one else there, just the orphan boy and the stone. When he got close enough that the orphan boy noticed him, he said, "What are you doing here? Who are you speaking with?" The orphan boy said, "Shh, don't reveal my secret. I am listening to the stone tell stories. Come, sit, join us, and listen." The other boy started listening to the stories, and he was as if mesmerized. Later, he told the mother that he probably has to follow him one more day before he could really know what's going on. And so he followed him the next day. This time the boys hunted together in the morning and then listened to the stone for the rest of the afternoon. They did that yet another day. And the adopted mother of the boy realized something fishy was going on. So this time she sent 2 adult men to follow the boys. And they did. And they saw the same thing, hunting in the morning and then sitting on a giant stone while listening to some disembodied voice. The men approached quietly and were in shock when they realized it was the stone that was speaking to the boys, telling stories. The boys invited the adults to join, and they listened for the whole afternoon. And at the end of the afternoon, the stone said to the gathered people, "Tomorrow, bring your whole village, and I will tell stories to the whole village." The next day, the boy asked the chief to allow the whole village to come and listen to the stories of the beginning of the people and beginning of the Seneca tribe. The chief agreed, and soon the whole village came out, each one of them with a gift for the stone of whatever they could afford. They laid their gifts on top of the stone and sat around and listened to the stories. They listened to the stories for several days, each evening the stone announcing, "I am finished for today, come back tomorrow." And when the last day came to a close and the sun was setting beyond the horizon, the stone announced, "I am finished. I have now shared all of the stories of creation with you. Now, some of you will remember these stories very well. Some of you will only remember some of the stories. and some of you won't remember them at all. But there will be those among you who are so good at remembering these stories, embodying these stories, and recounting them, that they will become professional storytellers. I want you to remember, when you come to these people who remember the stories of creation, when you come to them and ask them to tell you a story, always remember to bring them a gift in exchange for the story. For it is a greatest gift to share the gift of stories with another. I was there all those days when the stone was telling the stories. I was there visiting with the tribe and listening very carefully to every story that the stone told. I memorized these stories as best as I could, and then went on in my travels around the world, memorizing stories wherever I went.